In the heart of the Appalachian Mountains, where the dense forests whisper secrets and the winding trails are rarely trodden, stands an old, abandoned mental asylum. The locals speak of it in hushed tones, sharing chilling tales of hauntings and restless spirits. It's a place steeped in mystery and darkness, hidden away from the world. Our story begins with a group of 4 urban explorers, each drawn to the asylum for different reasons. There's Emily, the fearless leader with a thirst for adrenaline and adventure. She's always seeking the next thrill, the next challenge. Then there's Jake, the skeptic, who doesn't believe in ghosts or the supernatural. He's here to prove that the stories are just myths and nothing more. Sarah, the historian of the group, is fascinated by the asylum's dark past. She hopes to uncover its secrets and learn more about the people who once lived, and perhaps died, within its walls. And finally, there's Tom, the tech-savvy one, who loves capturing evidence of the paranormal on his many gadgets and cameras. Together, they've decided to explore the old asylum, despite the warnings and the eerie feeling that clings to the place. They're determined to spend the night inside, to document their experience and perhaps to confront the ghosts of the past. As they set off into the forest, the sun begins to set, casting long shadows and painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The air grows cooler, and the sense of isolation deepens with every step. The path to the asylum is overgrown and treacherous, a stark reminder that few have ventured this way in many years. The group presses on, their excitement mixed with a growing sense of unease. Chapter 1. Exploring the asylum. The journey through the forest had been long and arduous, but the thrill of discovery kept the group moving forward. The towering trees seemed to close in around them, their branches creating a canopy that blocked out the last remnants of daylight. Emily led the way, her flashlight cutting through the darkness, while the others followed closely behind, their footsteps muffled by the thick underbrush. As they neared the asylum, the sense of isolation grew stronger. The forest was eerily silent, save for the occasional rustle of leaves or the distant call of a nightbird. It was as if the very air was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. Finally, they broke through the tree line, and the asylum came into view. It was even more imposing than they had imagined, a massive, crumbling edifice that loomed against the night sky. The building's once grand facade was now a ghostly silhouette, its windows broken and its walls covered in creeping ivy. They stepped onto the overgrown path that led to the entrance, their flashlights revealing glimpses of the decaying structure. "Welcome to the creepiest place on earth," Jake muttered, his voice tinged with sarcasm, though even he couldn't hide the slight tremor in his voice. Sarah clutched her camera, snapping photos of the building's exterior. "Just imagine the history here," she said, her excitement evident. "So many stories waiting to be uncovered." Tom adjusted his equipment, making sure everything was ready to capture any paranormal activity. "Let's just hope we don't uncover anything too creepy," he said with a nervous laugh. The group reached the entrance, a pair of heavy wooden doors that had long since fallen into disrepair. Emily gave one of the doors a hard shove, and it groaned open, revealing a dark, cavernous hallway beyond. The air inside was stale and cold, carrying the faint scent of mold and decay. They stepped inside, their flashlights casting long shadows on the walls. The floorboards creaked underfoot, and the walls seemed to close in around them, amplifying the sense of foreboding. "All right, everyone," Emily said, her voice steady. "Let's split up and cover more ground. Jake and I will take the upper floors. Sarah, you and Tom check out the basement and the main level. Keep your radios on, and if anything weird happens, we meet back here immediately." With a final nod of agreement, they split into pairs and began their exploration. Emily and Jake headed up the grand staircase, their flashlights illuminating the peeling wallpaper and faded portraits that lined the walls. The air grew colder as they ascended, and the whispers seemed to grow louder, though neither of them mentioned it. Meanwhile, Sarah and Tom made their way down a narrow corridor that led to the basement. The stairs were steep and treacherous, and the air grew increasingly damp and musty. The flickering beams of their flashlights revealed old medical equipment and stacks of forgotten patient records, hinting at the asylum's grim past. As they delved deeper into the asylum, the sense of unease grew stronger. Unseen eyes seemed to watch their every move, and the whispers became more distinct, filling the silence with ghostly murmurs. The explorers had only just begun their journey, but already the asylum was revealing its dark and terrifying secrets. Little did they know, their night of adventure was about to become a fight for survival. Chapter 2: Exploring the Asylum. As Emily and Jake climbed the creaking stairs, the air grew colder with each step, and an uneasy silence settled around them. Emily, ever the thrill-seeker, pushed forward eagerly. "Come on, Jake, let's see what's up here." Jake followed reluctantly, his skepticism wavering in the face of the asylum's eerie atmosphere. "This place gives me the creeps," he muttered, more to himself than to Emily. They reached the first-floor landing and started down a long corridor. The doors to the patient rooms stood ajar, revealing glimpses of decaying furniture and rusting bed frames. The beam of Jake's flashlight flickered, casting strange shadows on the walls. Suddenly, a faint whisper echoed through the hallway. Both Emily and Jake froze, straining to hear. "Did you hear that?" Emily whispered, her voice barely audible. Jake nodded, his eyes wide. "Probably just the wind," he said, though his voice lacked conviction. They continued down the hall, the whispers growing louder. Emily's flashlight caught a glimpse of movement out of the corner of her eye, but when she turned, there was nothing there. "I think we're being watched," she said, her voice tense. Jake scoffed, but his eyes darted nervously around the darkened corridor. "There's no such thing as ghosts, remember?" Meanwhile, in the basement, Sarah and Tom navigated the narrow, crumbling stairs. The air was damp and musty, carrying the scent of mold and decay. "This place is a treasure trove of history," Sarah said, shining her flashlight on old medical equipment and stacks of patient records. Tom nodded, his camera capturing every detail. "Yeah, if by treasure you mean a nightmare." They reached the bottom of the stairs and stepped into a large, dimly lit room. Rows of rusting metal beds lined the walls, and tattered curtains hung limply from the ceiling. Sarah picked up a dusty journal from a nearby table, flipping through its pages. "These are patient records," she said, her voice tinged with excitement. "Look at this. There are notes about experiments they conducted here." Tom's equipment started picking up strange electromagnetic readings, and his audio recorder captured a faint, disembodied voice saying, "Help us." "Did you hear that?" Tom asked, his eyes wide with fear. Sarah nodded, her excitement turning to unease. "We need to find Emily and Jake," she said, glancing around the dark room. As they turned to leave, they heard a loud bang, like a door slamming shut. They hurried back up the stairs, their hearts pounding. Chapter 3: The Secret Room. Meanwhile, Emily and Jake pressed on through the dark, eerie hallway, their flashlights flickering as the batteries began to wane. They could hear faint, ghostly whispers growing louder, echoing off the crumbling walls and sending chills down their spines. Emily and Jake reached the end of the hallway, where a large, locked door blocked their path. Emily tried the handle, but it wouldn't budge. "Help me with this," she said, motioning to Jake. Together they forced the door open, revealing a hidden room. Inside, they found old journals, photographs, and documents detailing the asylum's dark past. The journals revealed that the asylum's director, Dr. Blackwood, had conducted inhumane experiments on the patients, leading to numerous deaths. "This place is worse than we thought," Emily said, her voice shaky. At that moment, Sarah and Tom burst into the room, their faces pale. "We need to leave, now," Sarah said urgently. They quickly shared their findings, realizing that Dr. Blackwood's spirit was still haunting the asylum, trapping the souls of his victims. The group decided to burn the journals and photographs, hoping to sever Dr. Blackwood's connection to the asylum. As they made their way to the old incinerator in the basement, paranormal activity intensified. Doors slammed shut on their own, and eerie laughter echoed through the halls. Ghostly figures appeared and disappeared in the shadows, watching their every move. As they reached the basement, Tom suddenly froze. His eyes glazed over, and a sinister smile spread across his face.
"You cannot escape. You belong to us."
Dr. Blackwood's spirit had possessed him. "Tom, no!" Sarah cried out, but it was too late. Tom lunged at them, his movements jerky and unnatural. Emily grabbed a nearby piece of wood and swung it at Tom, trying to snap him out of it. "Tom, snap out of it!" she yelled. Tom blinked, the glaze lifting from his eyes. He stumbled back, disoriented. "What happened?" he asked, confusion written all over his face. "There's no time to explain. We need to destroy those journals now," Sarah said urgently. They reached the old incinerator, a large, rusting metal box that had seen better days. Emily and Jake quickly fed the old journals, photographs, and documents into the flames. The fire roared to life, consuming the evidence of Dr. Blackwood's dark experiments. As the flames grew higher, the paranormal activity around them began to subside. The whispers faded, the shadows receded, and the eerie laughter was replaced by an almost palpable silence. The oppressive feeling in the air lifted, replaced by a sense of peace. The ghostly figures of the asylum's former patients appeared one last time, their faces serene. They nodded their thanks to the group before slowly fading away, finally freed from the asylum's grasp. The malevolent presence of Dr. Blackwood seemed to wane, his power broken by the destruction of the journals that tied him to this world. The group stood in silence, watching the last of the flames die down. They had done it. The spirits were free, and the asylum was no longer a place of terror. With the immediate danger gone, the group made their way back to the main hall. The asylum now felt empty, merely a decaying building rather than a haunted nightmare. "Let's get out of here," Jake said, his voice shaky but relieved. As they stepped out into the cool night air, they felt a wave of relief wash over them. The dawn was breaking, casting a soft light over the mountains. They had survived the night and freed the trapped souls of the asylum. Emily turned to her friends, her face solemn. "We can't ever tell anyone about this," she said. "No one would believe us anyway." They nodded in agreement, each deeply affected by their harrowing experience. They vowed to keep the night's events a secret, knowing that some mysteries are better left unsolved. Chapter 4. Morning Light. The dawn's light began to creep over the horizon as the group emerged from the asylum, each step lighter than the last. The oppressive atmosphere that had hung over them all night was finally lifted. Emily, Jake, Sarah, and Tom stood in front of the asylum, watching the first rays of sunlight touch the crumbling walls. The once terrifying building now seemed just like any other abandoned structure, empty and lifeless. "We did it," Emily said softly, a hint of pride in her voice. "We freed them." Jake nodded, his skepticism shattered by the night's events. "I still can't believe what we just went through, but at least it's over." Sarah looked back at the asylum, her eyes reflecting a mix of sadness and relief. "Those poor souls. At least they can rest now." Tom, still shaken by his possession, managed a weak smile. "Let's just hope we never have to deal with anything like this again." With one last look at the asylum, they turned and began their descent down the mountain. The forest that had seemed so menacing in the dark now felt like a welcome refuge, the birds chirping and the fresh scent of morning dew filling the air. They walked in silence, each lost in their thoughts. The experience had changed them all. The haunted asylum in the Appalachian Mountains had left its mark on the group, but it had also given them a gift, a deeper understanding of the unknown and a connection to the past. They had freed the spirits, but in doing so, they had also freed themselves from doubt and fear. As they moved forward with their lives, they knew the past would always be a part of them, whispering its secrets in the quiet moments. They had faced the darkness and emerged stronger, knowing that some mysteries are meant to be unraveled, while others are best left to the whispers of history. After their harrowing adventure, only one question remained. Where to next?